Hi, everyone. Welcome back to a new episode of the podcast. I have a very special guest who I found on Instagram, who I bought her almond butter and literally ate it in 2 days because it was that damn good. And so I was so curious about the brand. The name is amazing, the story behind it. So Rachel Klein is here, the founder and CEO of Revival. Thank you so much for being here.
Aw, thanks so much for having me. It's so fun.
It's so fun. And seriously, your almond butter is amazing. I had the one with cacao in it.
Oh, that's been my addiction lately. That one, I just eat it by the spoon.
I literally did that as well.
Oh my gosh, I love it. That's how it should be enjoyed. I love that.
Yes, absolutely. I absolutely enjoyed it that way. And the reason why I wanted to have you on the podcast is one, I love food brands. Like that is my heart and soul. And when I come across a new emerging brand, especially in the food space, I want to know all about it. So, to kick things off, I would love to hear because obviously I follow you on social and I saw one of your posts about your ethos story and I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Could you tell us a little bit about the story behind the brand and how you got started?
Yeah, I would love to. It's definitely an unconventional story.
Love that
My story
already.
is unlike most brands you'll see on grocery store shelves, because especially at the scale that we're at right now, we're in about 1,500 stores nationwide. Walmart is our largest,
Amazing.
and we're still very, very small. And the startup story is pretty funny. So I actually started Revival by accident back in 2014. I was actually just on this health kick. So I was actually a dance major in college. I was certified in aerial yoga, planning on opening up a yoga studio after graduating, and just really always really into health and wellness. And I was living at home at the time, just trying to clean out my parents' pantry and get us all on better health foods. And one of those things was into almond butter because we ate peanut butter all the time. And the more that I read and learned about peanut butter, the more I realized peanut butter is great as an indulgent treat, but it's really actually not that healthy for you. It's really high in saturated fats. It's actually a legume and not even a nut. It does have high protein, but really a lot of the other negative effects outweigh the positive. And so,
Mm.
I'm like, if this is something that we eat every day as a protein snack, it should be better. So I started going around trying to find almond butter because in 2014 is really when Justin's had its big rise.
Mhm.
And I would go out and buy almond butter, not just Justin's, but literally everything I could find, and was every time disappointed. I'm like, why does this almond butter taste like the ugly stepchild of peanut butter? It just doesn't taste that good. It was bland and pasty and didn't have a lot of flavor. And if it did have flavor, it always had sugar, some sort of sweetener, honey, maple syrup, coconut sugar, whatever. And it bothered me. It just was one of those things that just got to me. I'm like, well, I love almonds are great. So why is almond butter so gross? So I started making my own at home. Ended up making this one recipe that was just fantastic. And I made that one all the time. And it's actually now our sea salt vanilla. It's pretty much the same exact recipe, just like way scaled up. And so that was kind of my go-to thing that I made all the time. And fast forward to our wedding was happening. My husband and I were engaged. We're trying to figure out wedding favors. And I was like, I know, I'll do my almond butter. And so I had
I
these
love
little tiny,
that.
yeah, it's so random. But I'm like these little 1.5 ounce jars of Rachel's, like it said, made from the bride's kitchen or something on it. And, this simple recipe was on it. And everybody afterwards kept coming up to me and saying, oh my gosh, this was so good. You need to sell it. Like I've never had almond butter that tasted like that before. And it's just so random. I was like, oh, thanks. I was hoping you'd like it. But the fact that so many of my friends and family said, you need to sell this. I want more. Can I take more off the table? Can I get more from this thing? And so it just kind of stuck with me in the back of my head. I was like, huh, that was cool. Like, that's nice. That was not my intention. I just thought it was yummy and wanted to share it with my friends and family. So we ended up we were living in Louisville, moved to Indianapolis. I was trying to figure out what I was going to do, whether it was time to open up the yoga studio or wait because we were kind of transitional. So I said, what the heck? I'm just going to try this almond butter thing just for fun because I don't know what business I'm going to do later, but I was always very entrepreneurial. And I'm like, I'm just going to do this as like a practice business, which if anybody is listening that's in the world of consumer packaged goods, that's laughable because there is no such thing as a food business or a beverage business that's a practice business because holy moly, it is just all encompassing. I had no idea what I was getting in for. So I started doing farmers markets, local stores, eventually got an opportunity at one, more of a chain store that opened up the world of grocery to me and kind of got me on this trajectory of understanding this whole world and kind of getting addicted to it of how fun it was to be in grocery and to actually offer something different on grocery shelves because what differentiated us from the rest was the fact that I made this almond butter that not only was that classic recipe of like the sea salt vanilla. But then I started making other things that I wanted, like this raw cacao coconut we were talking about,
Mhm.
chai spice, rosemary maca, hemp chia and flax, and all of that, which is flavored by superfoods with no added sweeteners at all. Because if your ingredients are that great, you shouldn't need sweeteners. And that's the thing that I learned in the process of what made us so special is that because I was making it intentionally with really high quality ingredients, that's what made it taste so different. And these other products that are on the shelf are made at mass market scale in a way that's just trying to get high margins on it. So it's made with really crappy almonds, really crappy ingredients, overly processed, overly heated. They don't care. They're just saying, oh, people want almond butter. We'll give them almond butter. It doesn't matter
Right.
if it tastes good. It's a health trend. And to me, I'm like, gosh, if I'm going to buy anything from the grocery store, I want it to taste amazing, especially if it's something that I'm going to eat every day. So that's I did that kind of version of it for about 5 years while I had our first two kids. So all this time, I'm also stay-at-home mom. I
Wow.
was pretty much a stay-at-home mom doing this while during nap time in the evenings. I had a babysitter come over for like 2 days a week for a couple hours so I could go make product in the kitchen. It was just it was a really insane season of life, but fun because to me I love being a mom and it was something I never wanted to sacrifice, so I knew that I was just going to do it slower than everybody else and I was okay with that. My entire journey, I've now been doing it for about 8 years, is much slower than most other brands in food and beverage. Usually you're like skyrocket for 2 years and you're selling or exiting in five. And
Mm.
that's just not been my journey because I chose that. I just love being home with my kids too. Um, but back in 2019, I was pregnant with our third, and I was like, man, this is not working. I am exhausted, you know, feeling burnt out on all ends. So I said to myself, I am either going to blow this thing up and go really big and scale huge and really grow the business at scale because that's really what it needed to do. Living in this in between space really wasn't sustainable.
Right.
So I was like, either I'm going to blow it up or I'm going to wind it way down and just sell online to the people that love it. So I went to Expo East, which again, if anyone's listening and they know consumer packaged goods, Expo East and Expo West are like the largest natural food trade shows, natural food and or natural product trade shows
Right.
in the US. And so I bought a booth and did the whole thing, a huge investment for me at the time. It was like 10 grand total, and had a booth and ended up connecting with the buyer of Walmart at my booth. And at this time, I mean, I was still making it in the kitchen by myself. Like it was still very small. And I go to this huge trade show with my cute little IKEA booth that I returned literally everything of afterwards because I had no money. And ended up like striking a deal with the buyer for Walmart. And I was like, all right, well, this was my sign. And I guess we're gonna blow this thing up. I mean, it was like 2 months later, I went down to their headquarters and ended up, she was like, all right, great. I'm gonna get you in the system. We'll start the onboarding. And I was like, what? Is this really happening? And I was 27 weeks pregnant. It's just like,
Wow.
cool. So we did it. I mean, it was me and like one other person on my team that is operations, and then I have like a bookkeeper, and that's actually been the team for the last few years too. So we scaled up, got into 1,000 stores with Walmart. We've added some other retailers. And the beautiful thing in this whole process of scaling up with Revival has been able to like being able to see that it's actually possible to scale up with integrity in a
Mhm.
way that some other brands might look at, it when you start seeing a brand show up at Walmart, you might think like, okay, what corners are they cutting?
Right.
Is there how because it just doesn't seem possible. You're kind of told that mainstream brands don't have the ability to be as high quality as like something you're going to find at the farmer's market. And from experience, I've realized that's absolutely not true. I'm using the same suppliers, the same almond farmer since 2014, the same suppliers. I love my manufacturer. We make it all such like in such a beautiful way that's like still in high integrity with the way that I originally made it. I mean, I can't make it the same because I was stirring it by hand, but
Right.
like it's the same ingredients, the same suppliers since 2015. And I feel so proud of that because most brands don't do that. And the reason why is because they are looking for high margins at
Mhm.
scale. And to me, I'm like, if you create something beautiful that you believe in, that is still high quality, it's going to sell. And like the fact that we can have 5 SKUs on the shelf at Walmart of all places of this like superfood packed almond butter, and that we've been there for now 3 years, I think speaks volumes of what consumers are really looking for, you know?
Wow.
So that was not
Rachel,
a
this
short,
is one
but
hell of a story. I'm obsessed. I just had a feeling you had a cool story, but I really
oh,
didn't know any of this. Like, okay, let's just recap shortly because this is so good. I'm like, I didn't want to interrupt, but I'm like, oh my gosh, it's so good. One, that it started out of your kitchen when you're living with your parents, trying to figure out what you wanted to do next. Two, your wedding turned into a pop up and like brand activation.
right. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and 3, I really a few things here that I feel like a lot of founders who are just starting out will really be encouraged by. How did you start pitching to that first store that got you into that first chain when like going from say making it
hmm
yourself to even having the chutzpah, if you will, to like put
hmm
it out there and like say, "Hey, I have this awesome almond butter." Like what would that look like to be carried in your store? I would love to hear that because I love how you've been sustainably building, but you also took some major leaps.
Yeah.
And that is not easy. And you were having kids and a marriage and moving. Like, what were some things that helped you reach out or some things that you found were really helpful that you had to reach out? I would love to hear that
hmm
more.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, one thing about me is that I have a lot of gumption, I've been
Mhm.
told. And I am the kind of person who's going to say yes and figure it out later.
Yep.
But that being said, I mean, like, I remember the moment, especially so if I go to that Walmart moment, I remember leaving the meeting. It was a 20-minute meeting, and I leave that meeting like, holy shit, I just got my product into Walmart. And I was like, that almost felt too easy, is what I remember
Mm.
telling my husband. And he goes, Rachel, you made it easy for them to say yes. All the work that you've done up to this point made
I
it easy
love
for them to say
that.
yes. Yeah, and so I think that that would be one of my main things I would point to in like each of these moments of the story is that I built the business like it was going to get to that next stage. So when I got the first call for like the very first grocery store, they actually reached out to me. I didn't even pitch it. I mean, I
Wow.
went into a bunch of these local places and I would walk in there with, but that's part of it. So that's even part of that story is like I knew that I'm not just going to end up on grocery in 13 grocery stores in this chain just by walking into the store. But what I can do first is I can walk into these local boutique grocery stores with my box full of samples, meet the owner, build a relationship, give them, help that have them give me a chance to put on the shelf. And I did that, kind of repeated that process a few times over. So there's that part where you have to really be willing to almost like get down to the basics of
Mhm.
it's not always like sending them your perfect pitch deck and trying to sound very professional. It's actually starts in the very beginning with just acting very human and saying like, hey, I started this company, talking to someone face to face, calling somebody on the phone, like the normal, real human to human stuff that often gets overlooked, I would
Yes.
say even now is the reason why my business is going where it's going is because I act like a real human with every single person that I connect with in business and every retailer that I connect with, even with Walmart. I am friends now still with my buyer that took me in the first time because we built a relationship. I was always really transparent with her and authentic, and then that came back in return. And that's not true with everybody you connect with in business, but I would say that is the reason that each step of this process had that inflection point. So, but when I got the first call from the grocery store, they found my product in one of the local spots and they picked it up
Oh.
and they were like, oh, we want this person to come pitch to us. But when they found it on the shelves, it looked professional. It looked like it was not just some random mom in the kitchen making almond butter and filling it with an ice cream scooper. I mean, it
Mhm.
looked like it was made more professionally than it was. And that's part of it is like I made it easy for them to say yes because I was already readying myself for the next opportunity, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense and something that I always emphasize with emerging brands of these
Hmm.
are some steps that you could take to put yourself in a really great position for growth.
Hmm.
Something that
Right.
really stood out to me about your brand, because I'm a nerd creative director who's like obsessed with brand storytelling and really good
Hmm.
packaging, was your packaging, was your
Mm.
name, was the colors and the aesthetic. And I was like,
Hmm.
she's doing it right. Like, everything was really speaking to me, and even when I opened the box, it was really great, messaging in there and just a little attention to detail. I'm like, "Oh, I'm really excited." Like, honestly, since I opened
Yeah.
that box and then I ate the product, I was like, "Yep, yep, I get it. This is amazing." So, what
Mm.
helped you, like, find that brand? The
Hmm.
name, the visuals of it, like, could you give us a little bit of that
Yeah.
part too?
Well, I've always been a big creative to myself and have genuinely always loved walking around grocery stores and finding new fun products. And I am shamelessly the person who will buy a book by its cover or a product by how it looks. And oftentimes I'm disappointed, like I'll get it because it looks cool. And then it's actually like womp womp, not that
Right.
great. But in building up revival, that was always really important to me more than everyone told me it should be. Everyone's like, Rachel, don't get caught up in the packaging. Like, just like focus on R&D, focus on getting the product right. I'm like, listen, the product is fine. I'm not worried about the product. The product is amazing. I love how it tastes. I want to make the coolest packaging and that every part of it gives somebody a reason to pick it up and feel attracted to it. And a lot of that too, it's these moments of joy that I crave in just everyday life. I wanted to create this moment of joy that this is something that you're going to have in your pantry that you're going to eat like, every day, maybe every other day. This is your special treat. This is the thing that you're just eating by the spoonful or you're putting on a really yummy piece of toast. And that experience is a moment of joy. But I want even like picking up the jar and opening it and looking at the packaging that feels like a moment of joy too. And so
I
that
love
it's this,
that.
yeah. And so bringing that into, grocery stores in general can be pretty, it's, you're exhausted as a mom, you're walking around, just, I don't know what to get. Like, it's not necessarily the most joyful place to be. And I thought to myself, if I can create a joyful moment, even on the shelves of bringing in these bright colors and this fun messaging, that to me is a gift that I can give to consumers. And really back to even the name itself, that whole ethos in general too is about why I'm doing this. I wanted to create a revival in the grocery stores, but a revival in the nut butter category. Because I don't know about you, if you've ever stood in the nut butter aisle and you're just looking at this array of choices,
Mhm.
it's so overwhelming. And you're like, I don't know, what's the healthiest, what's the cleanest, which one doesn't have sugar, which one's non-GMO, which one's
Yep.
organic, it's all a mess. It's so annoying. And they all look exactly the same too, on top of that. They're all like tan and brown and
Yep.
yellow. And I don't know, you're just like, it's not fun. It's not enjoyable. So that's where I looked at that and I'm like, well, this category needs a revival. And I'm going to do
Mm.
it in a fun way, bringing something again. The once people actually look at the ingredients and taste it, they're like, wow, this is really amazing. But even if someone just picks it up and buys it because they thought it looked cute, I'm
They'll
okay
be
with that because
pleasantly surprised.
yeah, they'll be pleasantly surprised because also like I know that there is absolutely nothing bad in any of these jars whatsoever. And that brings so
Mm.
much, again, that's part of this revival that needs to happen all over the food space. But I'm going to start here with this one little corner of the grocery store and say, like, you should feel so good about what you're purchasing from start to finish. Like, from start because you're just enjoying the process and how cute it is. And then to finish because you're like, wow, it's actually good for my body and it makes me feel amazing.
I love everything you're saying. So, where can people now shop your products?
Yeah. So, like I said, our biggest retailer is Walmart right now, and we're in about 1,100 stores nationwide. Obviously, Walmart is not everybody's favorite store to go in all the time, but it's a place that most of us go at least once a year. But beyond that, you can find it at Foxtrot, which is more of a Chicago, DC, Austin, Dallas, really cool grocery store or grocery and market. You can find it online through our website. And well, there's a lot of other smaller independent stores that we're in. So if you go on our website, you can click on Find Us. And like I said, we have about 1,500 stores nationwide. So it's a ton of
Incredible.
these precious like mom and pops, which I just still love so much. And we're always expanding too. So there is actually a link on the website where you can say, I think it's like, where do you want to find us? Something where you can put in a request for what stores you want to find our products in. We're currently building our team and adding a lot of sales support so that we can actually expand into more retailers, small and big, because it's been just me this whole time. And I'm like, shoot,
Incredible.
I'm just, I'm staying afloat over here. So,
So incredible. The last thing I want to ask you, Rachel, is what do you see the future for your brand?
yeah. Well, big things are happening right now. We're actually stepping into our first capital raise, which is a
Amazing.
really big deal. Yeah, I'm really, really excited because with that, I'm going to start growing the team in a really significant way and finally be able to bring in the support that I've needed for ages. So next steps for Revival is actually we're going to start expanding into more of the nut and seed butter category. So right now it's just almond butters. It's 5 SKUs of almond butter, but we're going to add into kind of more of those peanut butter alternatives, but doing it our way, the Revival way, where there's really fun flavors and no sugar added. So we're going to do some sun butter, cashew butter,
Ooh.
pumpkin seed butter, and that'll be rolling out, in stages. But that's really where the company is going, that we are going to capture this white space where there are so many people with food allergies, with
Mhm.
food sensitivities, special diets, but they still want to enjoy what they're eating. So that's what we're going to kind of dive more into over the next year or two and see where that takes us.
I can't wait to see all of that unfold and follow along with your story. You're doing such an amazing job. Thank you so much, genuinely, for
Yeah.
sharing your story. I know this is going to inspire so many. And everyone listening, go get a jar because,
Yeah.
and especially the almond cacao, it was a knockout product. So thank you so much, Rachel. Everyone,
Yeah.
go follow, get your almond butter, and just thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me. It's so fun. I love
This
talking about it and I love talking to you about it. It's fun to
Thank you.
connect with another creative.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, and I'll see everyone on the next episode.